Welcome to this video, and here we are going to do our first video on physics. Well, for us to begin with the physics, we have to start from the basics, and we're going to begin with the basic units. Now, basic units are the units that are used in physics. Remember, for you to be able to really understand a lot of physics, you have to know to define the basics or the basic quantities and their units. And of course, you must also be able to state their symbols. Now, in physics, we talk about the 7 main basic units. And to be specific, we want to define each one of them and give their symbols. Because without giving symbols or without knowing how to write units for these quantities is not going to be really good for any student who want to learn physics. Well, we have the first 3 units that I want to call the MKS system. Now, the MKS system is a system which tries to explain those units that are used mostly in mechanics. Now, we have 3 units, that is the length, the mass, and the time. And for each unit, for each one of them is we have length, we have kgs, we have mass for kg, and we have time for seconds. Well, this MKS system is a very handy system of or a very important system of defining various units, because after all, we are going to learn something that all the units, especially those that deals with mechanics, must always come down to the MKS system. Talk of speed, talk of newtons or the force, talk of joules, the energy, all of these units must always come back to what we call the MKS system. And therefore, it's very important, especially if you want to learn mechanics, to be able to understand the MKS system of units. Now, length. We can define length as the distance or the distance between 2 fixed points. And most importantly, it's good if you know that the unit of length is meters. So we have meters to represent the units of length. And remember, meters are not the only units. We are simply saying these are the internationally accepted units, or the SI units that are used to define length or are used to represent length. We can also have other units like for length, we could talk of centimeters, millimeters, and also kilometers. So we have multiples and submultiples of length, but the one that is accepted as the basic unit of defining length is always meters, represented by small m. So never represent them with uppercase M, because that is not going to be accepted. We also have mass, and the mass can be defined as the quantity of amount or the amount of substance in a given quantity or in a given object. Now, the basic unit for mass is kg, kilogram. Now, we could also have other units, sub and multiple units of the mass, and that could be either, you could either talk of grams, milligrams, and so on. You could also talk about tons and so on. But the one that is accepted internationally to represent mass is the kgs, kilogram. Now, we could also talk about time. Time is one of the very, very important quantities, especially when you want to talk about mechanics. Now, time has to do with something to do with the rate of a body moving a given distance, for example, or a given length. It has to move at a certain rate, and that rate we are going to divide it by time. We can define that rate by time. And now, time is represented by seconds. The basic units of time is seconds. We could also have other multiples and submultiples of this time. For example, you could talk about milliseconds, you can talk about microseconds, you can talk about hours, you can talk about days, you can talk about weeks, and so on. But the accepted units for time has to do with seconds. Now, apart from the MKS system, we have other basic units. Remember, these are 3 units: the length, the mass, and the time. And now we can talk about other units that are accepted, and we have basic units for such units. Now, we have the first one, that is temperature, or thermodynamics, if you want to think about it. Now, that is represented by Kelvin. Remember, we can represent temperature by either degrees Celsius or Kelvin. But the one that is accepted internationally is what we call Kelvin, represented by capital K or uppercase K. So Kelvin. Now, we also have amount of substance. If you want to know the amount of substance in a given object, then we can have its units as mole. or represented by MOL to represent the unit. So the unit for mole that is accepted internationally is mole. We also have luminous intensity represented by the basic units known as candela, or sometimes CD, capital C, small d, to represent the luminous intensity. Well, we also have current. Now, current is represented by amperes or amp, depending on the pronunciation, and it is represented by A, uppercase A. So, uppercase A represents the basic unit of current. Now, remember, these are the basic units that we could have, or the basic quantities, the 7 of them. It's important that you know how to define each one of them, because they are really handy when it comes to definition of physics or understanding the various concepts of physics. Remember, always as you do calculations in various problems in physics, you must always indicate the units by the end of your working, because without the units, then the mathematics for physics is not complete. And therefore, I encourage you to follow our videos more and more so that we can discuss more about the basic units. Now, in our next video, we are going to tackle the branches of physics that we are going to be covering along our videos. Please remember to share this video, comment, and also subscribe.